When we think of someone who's addicted to alcohol, we have this stereotype of what an alcoholic looks like. Millie Gooch is a leading voice in sobriety for sober and sober curious girls.
I was binge drinking like so heavily at uni. It was literally like, that's how you make friends, but it can be causing harm to you. That's a slow, steady decline. Alcohol actually interrupts with part of your brain. It's not that you've like forgotten, it's that those memories were never made in the first place.
There's no beating around the bush.
You are much better having... You can't necessarily have like a healthy relationship with something that inherently is not healthy. Alcohol has ties to 7 different cancers. It's shown to possibly increase your risk of like...
It seems that it's going out of fashion.
For me, it's freedom. I don't have to wake up the next day and think, am I a bad person? I'm not a bad friend. I'm not deeply in debt.
Do you have any tips for anyone navigating those conversations?
Yeah.
Before we get into the conversation, if you could just do something really, really, really simple that will take you 2 seconds, just hit the subscribe button or leave a 5-star review, depending on what platform you're watching or listening. It is a huge, huge, huge help for the podcast and will help us continue making episodes that help you live a happier, healthier life. Thank you. Millie, we've had so many questions from girls who are sober curious or want to try out sobriety, and questions about the effect that alcohol has on women's health specifically. And I can't wait to come to those, but I want to start with your personal journey to where you are now and putting out the incredible information that you do put out. So what was your first experience with alcohol?
My first experience, do you know what was probably everyone's first experience of like a WKD, Bacardi Breezer at a party? Like, I think that was my first experience, but it didn't ever really take me that quickly. My first like binge proper experiences with alcohol, I would say, was when I went to uni, because I am an August birthday. So I literally turned 18 3 weeks before I went to uni. So for the first time I could get like legally served was when I was like living on my own in a new city. So that was when my drinking, I would say, like really started. Before that it was like a bit here and there, but yeah, that was the beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end. And I think that what makes your messaging so powerful in comparison to probably a lot of messaging around sobriety that you might see on social media is you literally share pictures of you sprawled out across the floor, like clearly not in a good way.
Yeah.
And are very open with you were a party girl.
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes some messages on sobriety may come across as coming from a place of superiority.
Yeah.
Talk me through that phase of your life.
Yeah. So I was binge drinking like so heavily at uni because I think that just is the culture. Like when you go, I mean, it might be slightly different now, but when I went, it was literally like, that's how you make friends. And like every Freshers Week activity was like a bar crawl or like, and I also went to work in a few like pubs and clubs as well. So I was like getting free drinks all the time. And for the first time in my life as well, like I had come from a small town where like I knew everyone. I didn't need to make new friends. Like I was like really academic and smart at school and like all those things. And then I went to uni and it was a whole different, and I'm also from like a very kind of like working class town, state school educated. And I went to uni and all of a sudden felt so out of my depth for like the first time of like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I felt stupid and like didn't know how to socialize or make new friends. And alcohol is like the perfect thing to discover at that point in your life, to be like, oh my God, people are going to like me. I'm going to be chatty. I'm going to be fun. I'm not going to be worrying about all those other things that I'm worrying about. So I just became like ultimate party girl because I just found that people really liked that person. So I was like working in bars and clubs, drinking like 3-4 nights a week, and then just slowly and steadily. And also it was the same time that like Geordie Shore was at like the height of it. So it was like going out and getting mortal. It was like the thing. And I was just, drinking crazy amounts, blacking out. Like you, we're small people. And I was drinking very heavily at the same level of everyone else, blacking out, like not remembering my night, waking up. And at the same time started struggling with my mental health of like anxiety and depression, and using alcohol as a complete like crutch for that, but getting in this cycle of like going out like to feel less anxious, blacking out, not remembering my night, waking up the next day with the world's worst anxiety, and then being like, I know what I'll do, I'll go out and I'll drink. And that was just like my life. And then I left uni, went to like work in PR and then went to work in journalism, and it was the same, literally on like a rotation of just drinking to like feel better about myself and my life, and then making things slightly worse. So yeah, that was the cycle that I was in for like a long time, of that like binge anxiety repeat kind of cycle.
I don't know how much I'll probably share about my own journey with alcohol. It depends on how much I value my future career. Because, you know, I've got some bad stories, but something that you just said that really actually like resonated with me a lot was being from state school, going to uni. And I don't think it's spoken about enough going when you come from a state school, most of the people you know are from state schools. So you don't, and then when you go to uni and there's this huge proportion of people who went to private schools, like I remember I was sat around a table, especially in medicine.
I was going to say, even worse.
And I was sat around a table with 9 other people, and I remember they were talking about how they were all at a disadvantage because they came from private schools, and they were basically saying how, oh, the kids who went to state schools got lower offers. And I was sat there, and it was this table of 9, and I think I was the only person who went to a state school. And it suddenly dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, like you all think you're at a disadvantage. Yeah, I'm the only person here. B, I'm like grossly like the odd one out here. And tying it into like alcohol and self-esteem, I think a large part of my issues with drinking stemmed from this low self-esteem, not feeling like I fitted in. And I felt like maybe my role to play was the fun one. The person who was always up for a laugh, always up for a drink. We'd walk into the bar and I'd look around and I'd be like, shots, you know? And that, like, my self-esteem was so low that I thought that was all I could offer to that friendship. And it became such a crutch for me. I think it ties into the glamorization of booze from shows like Geordie Shore, where it really did place like emphasis on that being the way to have fun. I'm so excited to talk about other ways that we can have fun and build relationships with our friends without using alcohol as a social crutch. I want to talk about the basics, the science. What happens when you drink alcohol, and then what happens the next day?
So we talk about alcohol as a depressant, and lots of people think that means it causes depression, and that's not necessarily the case. It definitely has a lot of links and ties with depression, but what we mean by that is it's a central nervous system depressant. So it slows things down. So that's why you're going to, like, you know, slow your speech, and, you know, that's why you shouldn't be driving, because everything kind of slows down. At the same time, it affects loads of different parts of the brain, one of them being the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain for like rational decision making. It weighs up right or wrong. So this is why you think some things are a really good idea that maybe aren't necessarily a good idea. It's harder to weigh up risks and things like that. So that's like one of the main things that happens. And then the thing people love to talk about as well is like blackouts and hangover anxiety. So alcohol actually interrupts with the part of your brain that puts, that basically moves your memories from like your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So when you have a blackout and the next day you can't remember things, it's not that you've like forgotten, it's that those memories were never made in the first place. So I always say it's like having a phone and you're like, you know, recording everyone, but you haven't pressed the record button. So those memories actually won't get stored. So the next day when you're like, I cannot remember this, it's unlikely that you'll get those memories back. So that's like a really interesting thing that happens. And then you've got the kind of like chemical side of anxiety. So I always say that anxiety is twofold. You have like the I can't remember because I was blackout. And then you have the way that it, you know, interferes with your brain chemistry. So alcohol stimulates the release of GABA, and this is the neurotransmitter that like makes us feel really calm and really like chilled. So you're getting this like spike in GABA, so all of a sudden you're very chilled, and at the same time it suppresses glutamate, and that is the one that is a bit more like excitatory. So basically it dampens that, so it makes you really, really chilled. And I always say it's a bit like, say you had a bouncer like at a club, all of a sudden it's like stopping all the like really excitable people coming in, and it's letting all the chilled people coming in. So your brain is like, oh, this is lovely, this is like really nice, really chilled. The morning after, your brain goes, oh my God, I actually think we let way too many chilled people in and we need to make it more excitable. So it kind of like swaps that. So the next day, all of a sudden you get a spike in glutamate. So you feel really anxious, and then you get suppression of GABA. So that thing that would make you normally feel chilled. So that is kind of like the chemical part of anxiety. So like another analogy, because I love an analogy because it helps me make sense of things, is like, say you're filling up a bathtub and then the next day you literally pull it out, it's all going to come rushing out. So that's what's kind of like going on in our brain when it comes to hangover anxiety.
That's those analogies are so helpful. And I probably will share a little personal story, a small personal snippet of actually where I was at in my relationship with alcohol when we met. Because you spoke about blackouts, which brought back a rather bad, I would say a rather bad memory, but it's a rather bad lack of a memory.
Yeah.
So I met Millie in, was it after COVID? 2020, December 2020?
Yeah. God, has it been that long?
But that's crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. I said I've known you like a couple of years. That must have been way longer.
I
that is crazy.
December 2020 or December 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I lied. December 2021.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I'd ended a long-term relationship that summer. There was the week after I ended that relationship, I was going out and I was drinking a bottle of wine every single night.
Yeah.
At the time when you're young, it's like fun, you know? You're on a breakup, you're on your hot girl summer.
Yeah.
That's completely not okay to be drinking that much. But it's so normalised.
So normalised, especially when it comes to breakups. Like, that is the rhetoric that goes around of, like, you know, fuck them, basically. So I don't know if I can swear on the podcast. But like, go out and get hammered, which is, when you really deep it, is, I always think, like, it doesn't matter what you think about your relationship with alcohol or anything, but it can be causing harm to you. And it's like really sad to me looking back on how I used to do it, of like someone upset me or broke my heart and all I did was go out and then hurt myself further. Like, that's the quite sad part of it to me that I look back on. But I mean, for some people it works. For me, it just like made me black out, do stupid things and then cry more the next day. So,
and I just, my self-esteem hit an absolute like rock bottom. Yeah. So that was in the summer, and then maybe around like the November, October time, I went out and I got blackout drunk. I maybe will consider cutting this bit out. I'm not sure if I'll keep it in. I woke up the next morning in a wet bed. Yeah. Maybe I woke up that in wet bed. Anyway, a couple of days later, I'm sat in the library with my friends, and one of my friends goes, "Oh, you got with this boy that night." It was someone one of my really, really close friends liked. And it really put that relationship in a really bad place. Yeah. It was the one thing that really like made me sit back and go, Faye, like, you need to reassess your relationship with alcohol because it's putting the relationships you care about at risk. Yeah. And it was a brilliant turning point for me, but I didn't really know how to go about it. Anyway, literally maybe a couple weeks later, I meet Millie and Millie tells me what she does. And I'm like, no, like I've been thinking about this so much. And we had like a great conversation. Obviously, I followed Millie and Millie posts these amazing people. So she has the Sober Girls Society and they post in questions and she gives them advice about literally what I was going through. I couldn't remember getting with this boy. Yeah. And apparently I'd said things to him that also were not very nice. Yeah. And not like what I thought or felt. Yeah. But the worst part was I could not remember anything. And it was this feeling of racking my brain, like, come on, like, please, can I not just think of something because I've really upset someone here? Yeah. And it was an awful, like, it was just not a good time. Not a good time.
But it's so common. And also, like, there's this myth of, like, you know, drunk words are sober thoughts. Yeah. And it's bullshit. Like, it's what you say when you're drunk is not rational. Like, I used to say things all the time. And, like, I remember my friends, they'd really celebrate my birthday. They'd organise this big night out. They all wanted to go home at, like, 2:00 and I just wasn't ready for the party to end. So I called them all see you next Tuesdays and said I hated them and they were the worst friends ever. And I love my friends so much. Yeah. But, like, because it affects that part of your brain where you just don't have, like, rational oversight. And it's really hard because I have a controversial, I talk about it quite a lot with like drunk cheating and things like that, because you are so responsible for the amount that you drink and that is on you. But I genuinely believe people do things that they would not normally do sober. Yeah. So it's that whole thing of like, yes, you are responsible for not drinking to get to that level in the first place, but people do things and they upset people and they hurt people that they genuinely wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
But it's because they don't have the knowledge about like what alcohol actually does. And then quite rightly, our friends are annoyed with us for us doing those things. And you know deep down there was no malice. So then you have this like internal battle that I used to get all the time because I'd wake up and I'd do things that just didn't align with my morals. Like even silly things like one of the last times I drank, I was walking through a club and apparently this girl was wearing a hat and I just took her hat off and threw it across the club.
God.
I'm quite socially anxious. Like why would I do something like that? Like they're so out of character. And so you have this like battle the next day of like, why am I doing things that like I would never do sober? And then you're like, is that the real me? And there's this like real internal battle of like, am I living with this like secret monster? But it's just that alcohol like literally turns you into a different person, or at least was my experience. That's not the experience for everyone.
That's been quite a healing thing because I think I've held that guilt for or guilt for other things as well for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're right, you are accountable for your how much you drink, but that guilt of, is there this nasty person inside of me that would betray my friends like that has been I have had that, so that's really healing. But
good.
Was there like a moment for you, or was it more of an accumulation of moments where you decided, right, this enough is enough, like I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, mine was, to be honest, an accumulation of moments, because I think actually some of those bigger, scarier ones should have stopped me drinking. But because I was so ashamed and carried that guilt, like guilt is a big trigger for drinking more. So the only way that I could feel better about that guilt was to like go out and drink more. So like there was a few of like, I would literally wake up and be like, I don't know where I am. And like I talk about it in the book, but like I woke up sort of like, I was like mid blackout and I woke up and realized I was having sex with someone and was like, this is crazy. Like, how have I like, and the next day I was in this like weird, like, I don't know, did I say yes? I remember kissing them. And then like, and it's that, those like horrible blurry lines and things like that, that I really wanted to reevaluate my relationship with alcohol, but I had so much like ickiness and just like guilt and shame that I was like, I'm just going to keep drinking. So I was actually, like, I always say that actually my last hangover wasn't even my worst, but it was like I had the clarity. Like I'd done a few stupid things. My friend said, like, again, I don't know why I'm obsessed with throwing stuff when I'm drunk, but I was in the Uber home with my friend and she had a burrito in her hand. And for whatever reason, I wound down the window, took the burrito and threw it out the car. And like just silly things like that. And I woke up that next day, I felt awful. I had a text from some guy that I didn't remember speaking to saying, oh my God, you were so drunk last night. And I was like, I don't even know who you are. Like, and I woke up and I was like, no, do you know what? I can't keep doing this. This is actually ridiculous. Like I hadn't done anything crazy shameful, just a bit of like burrito throwing. But I was like, I can't do this anymore. So that was the day I kind of stopped. But there had been multiple times before that had been far worse. But I had just, not wanted to even think about it.
You blocked it out. Yeah.
It's easier to just go and drink again and forget it and push it to the side than it is to be like, God, I actually need to change my entire life.
A big part of British drinking culture stems from the way that we are also uptight and stiff
100%.
sober. It's the way that British people just don't move their bodies unless they're drunk. Like they can't, you know. Yeah. So then when British people get drunk and then they do stupid stuff like throw the burrito out the window, we think it's so funny and it's great stories to tell because we don't do funny, exciting stuff sober.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty because I'm laughing at that story now, but like I feel like I'm fueling those the law that we create by being intoxicated.
Yeah. And do you know, it's a hard line for me as well because I've got very like deadpan and self-deprecating humour as well. Yeah. So even when people are telling me drunk stories, I'm laughing along and then I'm like, no, I shouldn't be promoting this and like continuing this. But it is hard because it's so ingrained in us to like laugh at those things.
I really want to come on to how we can incorporate more of that fun into our sober lives and in like that openness and acceptance of ourselves that we don't need a drink to feel like we can be ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you about how it was received when you spoke to your friends and your family about deciding not to drink anymore?
Yeah, I always say actually, like, the reaction wasn't too negative, but I think it was because they actually didn't believe me. Like, it was kind of underwhelming. I'd said so many times, we've all said it, I'm never drinking again. So when I said to them, I'm never drinking again, they were quite like, okay, yeah, cool, sure. Like, I think just no one actually believed me. And then I always say, like, I remember like 6 months later, I was going away with one of my friends and she was like, oh, but you're going to drink while we're away, aren't you? And I was like, no. And then you saw the realization dawn on her face that this was like probably a longer term thing than anyone had like expected. So I think like, yeah, I was lucky that in the first instance I didn't get too much, but I genuinely think it's because they didn't believe me. So yeah, I sort of like lucked out with that one. By the time everyone realized it was happening, I'd already kind of like got enough time that they'd seen that I was like happier and healthier and all of those sorts of things.
Do you have any tips for anyone navigating those conversations that you've learned over the years?
Yeah, I think be honest as possible. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it wasn't super straightforward and like I still get it now from strangers when I say I don't drink. So it's not I've got away with it, scot-free. But I think be really open because again, as a, like even as British people, we have this tendency to be like, oh, I'm on antibiotics or oh, I'm just driving and sort of like skirt around it. And every time I said something like that or like, oh, I'm just not drinking at the moment, people would be like, oh, come on, just have one. Whereas when I actually like sat down with my friends and said, listen, like drinking is making me so upset. I don't know if it's going to be a forever thing, but I would love it if you would support me because I'm finding it really hard. So if you could get on board, that would be great. And as soon as I said that, they were like, oh, yeah, like, of course. Like, yeah, we want to support you. We love you. Like, I think being honest and vulnerable where you can is really important. And I appreciate that's hard. And I think it's harder for some people than others. But I think being honest is one of the best things that you can do, to be honest. I think that's like the best starting point. And then also, it's not necessarily like around having those conversations, but I think just know that some people's opinions will change because there is a lot of people are like, oh, you know, if people don't support you, cut them off. But what I actually found is that some people were like quite like negative about it at the beginning. But then as soon as they saw I was happier and I was still coming to parties and I wasn't like being really patronizing about their drinking, then all of a sudden they got really on board and were really supportive. And I don't think that makes them bad people because I think this is so socially ingrained within us that is our instant reaction. Like people just automatically say things like, oh, you can't trust people who don't drink. And then you're like, why? And they're like, oh, just, you know, you can't. I'm like, but I'm really trustworthy. I like used to do really horrible things and upset people and lose my house keys. And like, you couldn't give me something and tell me to look after it for the night. I couldn't be trusted.
Yeah.
I can be trusted now. So why is that a thing? And then when people really interrogate it, they're like, oh, yeah, no, actually. But people just have these like visceral reactions because that is so like ingrained within us.
And ingrained within our culture. That I really love that you said you don't necessarily agree with the cut people off thing, because after I met you and I considerably cut down my alcohol intake, I should be clear, I do still drink, but my relationship has completely changed. And I think that that's why this conversation is so valuable, regardless of whether someone wants to go completely sober or, you know, just change their relationship with alcohol. It's all so beneficial.
Yeah.
But I basically completely changed my relationship with alcohol. I cut it out for a couple of months as like testing the waters to try and get to a place where honestly I just built up my self-esteem enough to realise I can be in social situations sober and be okay. There's not much to do in North Wales if you're young, in your 20s, apart from drink. So it's heavily embedded in my relationship with my close friends from home. And I remember telling them, and it was the first night that we all spent together and I didn't drink. But a couple months later, another one of my friends was going through a really tricky time, and she was like, I need to cut out alcohol right now. Because people's opinions change, and especially if they see you doing it,
100%.
They're even more likely to change. I love that you've said that.
Thank you.
There are challenges that people might face with their friends and family if they choose to cut out alcohol. But are there any challenges that you faced personally? Any moments where you've gone, do you know what, actually, I think I want to go back to drinking?
Yeah, I think like the hardest thing for me has always been like a lot of the reason I drank was because I have like a busy, wizzy brain that I overthink everything, quite anxious. And for me, when I like stopped drinking, I realised how active my brain was. Before that, I'd really been using alcohol, and even like going into like a club environment that was like really overstimulating before I had just drank. So for me, that was the hardest part of like, I actually realised I had no idea how to relax or switch off or escape my own brain without alcohol. So that I think has been the biggest, and is still, if I'm being completely transparent, something I navigate like all the time of like, things can be overwhelming, and I used to drink and now I have to really try and like do the other things that I know work for me. So I think that's always been the hardest thing of like learning to deal with your own emotions as well. There is no escape. Like the heartbreak thing, I have been through a heartbreak sober, there is no escaping it. But on like a positive spin on that, I think you get through things quicker because you face them so head on. Like I remember just going through a breakup and crying, I think for about 2 weeks solidly. And after that being like, okay, I think I've processed it. Like it's like you're not pushing things to the side, you are dealing with them, and that can be really hard, whether that's like stress, heartbreak, like overwhelm, even joy. Like we actually find joy quite hard because like we celebrate with alcohol, and that's a whole different irony of the same thing we celebrate with, we commiserate with, of like sometimes I think a lot of us just find those really heightened emotions quite hard. So I think that is like probably my biggest challenge that I have like gone through of like learning how to unwind again, and then the learning how to have fun again, I think, is because I'd built my entire personality on being like the fun party girl. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need a new gig. Like, what is that thing? And I think that's really hard. The identity shift, it all kind of ties in together of like, who am I now? Like, because my friends like you, they used to call me Generous Millie because I was always the one buying shots because I just wanted the party to keep going. Like I was always tapping my card because I was like, yes, let's keep this going. And like always the one being like, right, what's the next club we're going to? And then I was like, oh my God, I don't even know who I am anymore. So like, yeah, they were the biggest challenges, like identity, learning how to relax, learning how to have fun, and dealing with your emotions, I think.
God, I think we've lived the same life. That was because right when I was going through this breakup, that was when like I just started my YouTube channel, and then, you know, that's just money a 22-year-old should not have access to, or 23-year-old, whatever I was. And I was exactly the same, because when people wanted to go home because they were sensible and they were thinking about their wallet, I was like, Faye's YouTube money is here. And like I just remember because it was the first year that I made money from YouTube, and I honestly think I don't think I saved a single penny because, and that is when I think about the amount of money I just spent on going out and booze and like trying to keep the party going, it makes me feel physically like sick. The financial implications of drinking, especially in the cost of living crisis. So what was that next gig? How did you bring the fun back?
Yeah, I think, well, that's the important thing, is I realised I still could be the fun one, but didn't necessarily have to like rely on it to be my personality. But like I love organising fun things and I love doing different things, and it just looked like slightly different. I think one of the things I would say is like, when you stop drinking, that is a lifestyle choice that you are making and not necessarily your friends. So all of a sudden I realised that my friends weren't necessarily going to start organising really fun activities that we could do because they all still wanted to do other stuff. So I kind of like took that on, and I think I realised that it's really default for people to like meet at a bar or meet at a restaurant or meet at a club because that's just easy. Like, let's all meet here. It's kind of ag to like organise things. So for the first part, I was like, no, I'm going to take it upon myself to organise things. And I realised it wasn't that my friends didn't want to do those things, they just couldn't be asked to organise it. So like for one of my birthdays, I was like, let's all go whitewater rafting. Like, I'm going to organise it. We went down to like Lee Valley, and they still talk about it now as like one of the funniest things that we did. And so I think like, you have to make a bit of effort when you stop drinking because that's a decision you've made. If you want your friends to do fun things, organise it, suggest them things. Like, eventually they will also get on board and start suggesting things. But I think just to get the ball rolling, be like, let's do this, let's do that. So I think that was a thing that I learned, was like, you know, do other stuff, like do some more daytime fun stuff. And actually, like, I found those things so bonding with my friends because we've got all these like new memories. Because after a while I realised, and don't get me wrong, I still love to go out and I still love to party, but a lot of my memories of my friends, especially because I was so blackout, just all like blurred into this like one kind of like long club night out. Whereas now we've got these like really separate memories and experiences. So I think that's the first thing that I would say. And then in terms of like finding the things, because when I stopped drinking, so I was like, I don't even know what I like doing for fun. I think go back to things that you like doing when you were a kid is like a really important one, and like activities or hobbies and things that you love. I used to love writing and I used to love dancing, and so like when I got sober, I like went back to dance classes and like just doing things that like brought you joy and things that maybe you discarded instead of like in the pursuit of drinking, I think, instead. So I think that's always a good place. What did you love doing as a kid? Did you write like stories? Did you, I don't know, play with dolls? Maybe you want to like get your Beanie Baby collection going again, like collecting things or doing craft or like whatever that thing is. I think that's a good place to start, to be honest.
You did an amazing series on your Instagram that was like sober, fun things to do.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that, because there's so many things you would never even think of. And I don't know, I think it's when you sometimes look at spending the money on the sober things, you're like, God, that's so much money. But then you spend that money on a night out in London because you're not, your prefrontal cortex is buggered. You're just you're just tapping. The impulse control isn't there.
Yeah.
But when you're sober and you're booking like whitewater rafting and you're seeing what, like 40, 50 quid come out your account, you're like, oh God, that's painful. But you don't think twice when you're drunk.
Yeah. And I would do like triple that when I was drinking. But it's like when I went whitewater rafting, like we all got little hot chocolate afterwards. That was the only other money that we like spent. When you weigh it up, you're like, yeah, of course that's cheaper. But yeah, at the time you're like, oh, this is a big expenditure.
Yeah. No, I love that. Absolutely, I love that. And you're right, so right about the connections. I remember when I like cut down on my booze and just even was experimenting with sober like nights out, you actually realise how many friends, unfortunately, are like drunk friends.
Yeah.
They're not friends you actually have a bond with or a deeper connection with. And I found that like really, really sad. I was like, oh God, I'm investing time in a lot of these relationships where they're good time friends.
Yeah.
They're not here to support me through the bad times and the shit times. And that was rough.
Yeah. And it's okay to have good time friends, but if they are your only friends, when you get sober, you're going to struggle. So you have to like try and find some other friends, because I think this journey can be really isolating if you don't know anyone else doing it. So I think looking at your friends and being like, okay, do I have any other friends that aren't just good time friends?
Yeah. And building those connections through daytime activities. Yeah. You mentioned that you still enjoy partying.
Yes.
Give us your top tips for going out as a sober girl.
Yeah, I mean, number one is a disco nap beforehand, because tiredness is like the biggest thing that holds me back from like a night out. So like, especially say it's like a Saturday, I will make sure that I like have a nap beforehand, because I'm like, I need to be on like top energy game. I think there are other simple things that you can do at the beginning that I don't necessarily do now, but are easier to like navigate in the beginning. I would like, as soon as you go there, either get someone else to go to the bar and just ask them and say, can you get me a non-alcoholic drink? Because sometimes you might get to the bar and be like, oh, just have an Aperol Spritz, please. Like if you tell someone what you would like, they can go and get it for you. Or just make a beeline the minute you get there, have in your head, like look at the menu beforehand, decide what alcohol-free drink you're going to have, go straight to the bar if you can trust yourself, and just order it straight away, because it takes away a lot of that like friction of the decision making. Like if you're just standing around and someone's like, oh, do you want a beer? And you're like having that drink in your hand, you can be like, no, I'm okay. Like that's good. I think, look after your energy levels and like take regular breaks, even if you just like go and sit in the loo for 5 minutes, because if it's like overwhelming to you, like just take a bit of time out, I think. And then like assess your energy levels and leave if you want to. Like it's re-navigating that I have to be the last one at the party. Like after a certain time, you're like, I'm good, I can go home now. And I think it's learning that. And I think the other thing is probably just remember that not all events are equal. So even like you might go to one wedding and be like, oh my God, sober weddings are so hard. They're really awful. Can't do it. You might go to another wedding and be like, this is the best wedding I've ever been to. And you might find festivals hard, but you might find bottomless brunches easy. Like not every event is going to be the same. Like the difference with drinking, not drinking is you like know what parties are shit and what aren't. Like when I was drinking, I could have fun anywhere. Like you put me in like a warehouse, right? Even just be like, there you go. And I'd be like, that's the best day ever. But when you stop drinking, you're like, why the fuck am I here? People are pissing on the floor. Like I don't understand. So I think it's like understanding the places that you want to go to and that you might have a good time at some and that you might have a terrible time at others. I'm that point about knowing what to order or getting someone else to order for you resonates with me so much because we're all sheep, aren't we? Yeah. Like we are 100%. We all just do what everyone else is doing. The other day I went, literally on Tuesday, I went out for dinner and it was a school night and I was about to order my nice little soft drink and my friend was like, I'll have a pint. And I was like, I'll have a pint as well. Yeah.
And I've been in that situation as well, where I've said, I'm not going to drink tonight. And then you get to the bar and you're like, vodka, Diet Coke, please.
Yeah.
So get that. I love that tip. I'm going to steal that one.
But especially if you don't know what they've got at the bar, because a lot of times like their alcohol-free drinks will be in some like dusty cabinet somewhere and you don't know. So having a look at the menu beforehand, knowing exactly what you're going to order, because otherwise you don't want to be really awkward and be like, oh, excuse me, what non-alcoholic drinks do you have? Like even just that can make people feel uncomfortable enough to be like, yeah, I'll just have a pint, please. So I think like those sorts of things can really help you. And like as you get more confident, those things get so much easier. But like at the beginning, it sounds silly and a bit like you're having to like mollycoddle yourself. But I think put some of those like things in practice, and like even letting your friends know beforehand, because I'm someone who's very easily peer pressured when I like get to somewhere. Even like now it would be with like food or things like that. So like I would message maybe the group chat beforehand and be like, just so you know, guys, I'm not drinking tonight. And everyone can be like, oh, how annoying, blah, blah, blah. But then by the time you get there, they're kind of over it. So I think put it out there early is a good one as well. And just let people get used to it.
Let people know in advance.
Yeah.
I really loved your point earlier about honesty as well, because I didn't drink for the couple of months leading up to the London Marathon, like at all. But I'd still go out. I had like water drop cubes that were cola flavoured.
Yeah.
So I'd just bring like a little pack of them, and they were great to put in my bag to a house party, mix them in with water.
Yeah.
But I always, in my head, I said, oh, that's great, because no one will know.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want anyone to know and say these comments. Whereas actually being honest is always the best option.
Yeah. The thing is, I think you can change it depending on what the vibe is. Like if it's like a work thing and you're like, actually, I do not want to be honest with these people, I don't want to get into it, then you can do the fake G&T and I'm drinking. Like I'd never want to say to people like, oh, you always have to be honest. Like if you feel like the situation that it will make your life so much easier just to pretend you're drinking. Like who am I to tell you what you should have? But I think when it comes to your like really close friends, the ones you're going to be spending a lot of regular time with, the ones you know you're easily influenced by, then I think like honesty is the best policy.
Yeah. I also found you spoke about your close friends and work stuff. Like I think they're two completely different situations to navigate.
100%.
And something I found that once I'd built up my self-esteem, that Faye, you are enjoyable company, even if you haven't had a drink.
Yeah.
I realised that when I was with my close friends, we'd be chatting away, yapping. It would take me so long to finish one pint because I wasn't nervously clutching my drink, trying to get it down as quick as possible, because I just wanted that social crutch. And I realised that at work things, that was my big thing, was I would end up getting like the most drunk.
Yeah.
And I think it's really useful that you've said, targeting your approach differently.
Exactly.
It's really helpful.
People talk a lot about like the traffic light system as well, like how much you want to reveal to people. So like, red might be your really condescending boss that you just know is going to have like horrible opinions about you not drinking. So when they say, why aren't you drinking? Maybe you want to say, I'm on antibiotics, or I just don't want to at the moment. And then, amber is someone that you're going to give them like the bare minimum, so they like leave you alone. And then green is like, oh, you're going to tell them your entire story of like anxiety, maybe suicidal. Like you can kind of tailor your approach depending on like what the situation is and who you're talking to. Like I don't think it has to be like a blanket rule across every kind of like social interaction.
I like that traffic light system. That's really, really useful. I'm going to go through some community questions because we had a lot. And I'm sure you'll have quite a few opinions on them. Okay. What does a healthy relationship with alcohol look like?
Oh, I love this question. I think it's really hard because like when I answer this, I just want to be very honest in the way that like alcohol is a drug. So it's kind of like saying, how do you have a healthy relationship with nicotine or cocaine? You can't necessarily have like a healthy relationship with something that inherently is not healthy, but you can have a healthier relationship with alcohol, like for sure. And I'm a big harm reductionist, so I'm not against moderation or anything like that. So I think the main thing is that like a healthy relationship with alcohol is one that you feel completely 100% confident in. If you don't think it's causing you any issues, whether that's like finances, friendships, mental health, anything, then I would personally say that is a healthy relationship with alcohol. I think that like not using it for emotions, not to like bandage over anything, not to use it as an escapism. I think it's using it to enhance the situation rather than like take away from any kind of like pain or discomfort. You've also got like medically quantifying what a healthy relationship looks like with alcohol. So, you know, Chief Medical Officer guidance is no more than 14 units a week. That's for men and women. And that should be spread. So that's not in, you know, one kind of sitting. And you should also take drink-free days throughout the week. So that is what a healthy relationship looks like in terms of units. But, you know, you might be having 3 or 4 units and it's giving you anxiety. So that's not necessarily a healthy relationship. So I think it's really important in like you knowing what that looks like for you and really being honest with yourself of like, am I 100% happy with my relationship with alcohol?
I should have also mentioned that you're not just someone who has lived experience. You also have a master's in...
I do. Addiction and mental health. Yeah, because I was sick of men on the internet telling me that I didn't know what I was speaking about. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go and get a master's degree in it. And then I can say, no, I actually do know. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you really do have the knowledge to back up everything that you're saying. And, you know, you're big on the research and the studies. What are your thoughts on the 1 glass of red wine a night is good for you study?
Yeah. So I think this has been debunked quite a lot now in that like there's been a lot of studies that, you know, have kind of pushed that red wine is good for you. Red wine like has good properties, but it's like from the grapes and that is thought to be negated by the alcohol. So you are much better having grape juice. The analogy that I use is like an apple covered in bleach. So yes, the apple is really good for you, but you've also got this like negative effect as well. So yeah, that study has been debunked quite a lot. And I think the only effects that were like shown to be positive were in like a very certain group of people. So yeah, that is an interesting one, I think. But yeah, sorry, red wine is not good for you.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the healthy relationship thing. And, you know, as I said, I say this as someone who still drinks just a lot less, but there's no amount of alcohol that's healthy for you. Like there's no beating around the bush. That's you know, the units or whatever. It doesn't change that you're still drinking and it's still not. It's not good for your body.
It's funny because there's a lot of debate around this like no safe limit lately, especially as well, because like you're saying, there is no safe like limit physically that is healthy for you. So even like, you know, 1 glass of wine a day is shown to possibly increase your risk of like breast cancer. But then there is the argument from some people of like, okay, but if you stop drinking completely and cut yourself off, you know, social isolation, is it maybe healthier for you that you are having a drink? So there is a lot of arguments, and I like looking at all of them because I'm very I like this topic to be nuanced. I really don't think everyone's relationship with alcohol is the same. But if we're talking in terms of like the harm to your physical body, then yeah, there is no like safe level of alcohol use.
And I think that's why I think that you're such a powerful voice on social media, because where you really do take this nuanced, balanced approach that is often way too lacking on the internet. And, you know, that's why I think over the last few years, we've seen this massive rise in sobriety as a trend. And now over the last, I don't know, year, few months, it seems that it's going out of fashion. Yeah. Which, you know, when you have extremes, it's easy for it to come in and out. When you have someone who's promoting real evidence-based advice and lifestyle changes and a nuanced view, that's not going to go out of fashion. Yeah. What seems to be the shift in the tide.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw it coming because what goes up inevitably must come down. And all of a sudden, sobriety became this thing that like was being really bundled into like self-optimization. And it shouldn't, like, sobriety is not about being the very best version of you and being super productive. And it's literally about eliminating something that might be like harming you or like causing you, for me, like mental anguish. So I think it was inevitable that a lot of these people who adopted it for like those purposes were then after a while going to be like, oh, actually, no, like that's not serving me anymore. And I think there's so many reasons why like our relationship is changing with like alcohol maybe coming back into fashion. I think you know, the alcohol industry can't be ignored. They're very big. They're very powerful. They know a lot of people aren't drinking. So they're like adapting their messaging now, which is a whole, you know, that could be a whole podcast in itself. You've also got this kind of like the world is on fire, so we might as well drink through it. Like, and I think, again, that's kind of like been perpetuated by lots of different people. So I think we are seeing this like, because it was bundled into self-optimization culture, people were seeing it as like another way that you're being restrictive. And I hate this idea that like sobriety is about restriction, because for me it's freedom. Like I don't have to wake up the next day and think, am I a bad person? I don't struggle with anxiety. I'm not a bad friend. I'm not deeply in debt. Like for me, it's only ever been freedom. But I think it gets kind of bundled in. Like some people have said, oh, sobriety is like the new diet culture. And I'm like, oh my God, no, it's not. Because actually, when you look, it's like the diet industry and the alcohol industry that have parallels, because they're both like, they want you to take this product and they're selling this product as the solution of like, this is going to make you happy. This is going to solve all your problems. So actually, when you really deep it and you like learn about the alcohol industry, I think there's actually a lot more parallel ties that way. And so like I totally understand a lot of the criticisms, but I think it's because it's come from this way that alcohol has been bundled into like being your best self, and that's not necessarily like what sobriety should be about, I think.
Yeah, and as someone who has found myself, you know, at different points in my life firmly entrenched within diet culture, optimization culture, hustle culture, I can also recognise that the type of person who is attracted to those things will also be attracted to this element of control that sobriety has. Like, it's not that it's the sobriety that's bad. It's probably the reasons that you're looking for sobriety, maybe from a deeper issue. I also think it's really interesting you touched on the social, like mental health concerns that people have about sobriety, because today's age and today's society is really, really lonely. We're having a massive loneliness epidemic. And I don't think that comes from less people drinking. I think that comes from people feeling as though they need this social crutch to communicate with people. You know, I've felt that myself. And then you don't build these meaningful relationships. There were a lot of relationships I had in the past where I wouldn't text someone and be like, oh, shall we go out for a coffee? Because I'd find that too anxiety inducing. But I'd text them, oh, you're free tonight, should we go out for a drink? You know? And I don't know, encouraging the building of these sober relationships is arguably, you know, probably a little bit better.
Oh, I think so. And I think it's important that we had these spaces in between, because like, to be transparent, I'm not a runner, and I feel like the only option sometimes is that you go out and you get blasted or you join a run club. And to be honest, a lot of that was like the motivation for Sober Girl Society, and also the way we've pivoted to make sure that we're doing events that aren't necessarily like feeding into that self-optimization. Like, I think it's important that there are spaces that are created that are about having fun, that are about going out and dancing, and that are having a good time, but just without the alcohol. And like, it's hard for me to ever see that sobriety could be like touted as a reason for loneliness epidemic, when I will sit at one of our mixers and watch 30 people who don't know each other become best friends and finally see themselves reflected in someone else, and go away and say to me as they're leaving, like, thank you so much, it was so refreshing to meet people who are going through what I'm going through. I'm like, how could that be feeding into a loneliness epidemic? There's got to be something else like missing here. And I think the trouble is, some sobriety advice is like, when you like stop drinking, don't go anywhere that triggers you. Don't go out, like avoid social occasions, do this. And I do think like in some cases, again, like not all advice should be for everyone, because I actually found that I went out literally a week into being sober for my friend's birthday and was in a kebab shop at 3 a.m. in Shoreditch. And I always say like it was the best thing I could have done, because it taught me, I ripped off that plaster so easily, not so easily, so quickly. And it taught me straight away, I didn't die. This was fine. Like, yeah, it wasn't the best night out I've ever had, but I could do it, and I'm okay, and I've had an all right night. And so that for me was like really valuable to learn up front. So I think it's important not to completely cut yourself off from socialising. Like, yes, avoid places that you might find overly triggering. But again, I don't think like all social occasions are made equal. So maybe go to something that you think you'd be able to do. So I think that is one thing that I would say about this.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's probably worth me mentioning, I probably should have said it earlier, but if you're someone who is experiencing or is concerned that you're addicted to something, to definitely seek professional help. And there's probably slightly different guidance that they would give in comparison to, or I don't know, would you agree with? Yeah,
100%. I think and their advice would also be different for the individual as well. You know, like we're talking about now more of like addiction being on a spectrum, and people are going to have different challenges and different reasons why they drink. Some people might drink because they're very socially anxious. Some people might drink because they want to be the life and soul of the party. They've got no social anxiety. So it's not all going to be like exactly the same advice. I think the main thing is that if you're worried that you're alcohol dependent, which is when your body is physically dependent on alcohol, then you may need to go through like a medical detox process, and stopping drinking tomorrow could actually be really dangerous. So if you are like, especially if you're like a daily drinker, then you definitely, your first port of call should always be your GP, because they'll be able to like help you kind of tailor off alcohol like very safely. So that is the one important distinction that I would make. But apart from that, I think a lot of the advice out there, you have to take what works for you and disregard what doesn't.
I'm so glad you said addiction as a spectrum, because I couldn't word it properly, and you just worded it absolutely phenomenally. Because, you know, when we think of someone who's addicted to alcohol, I think we tend to think of a middle-aged man who maybe doesn't have a home, or, you know, doesn't have a job. Like we have this stereotype of what an alcoholic looks like. But, you know, I think about when I was going through that breakup, and I had a bottle of wine every single night.
Yeah.
And like, I very much had that was my coping strategy. And, you know, maybe I wasn't I wasn't physiologically dependent on alcohol, but I would say it was probably, you know, that I probably existed on that spectrum.
Yeah.
But it flew under the radar as someone who is young, and not this stereotypical phenotype of what we think an alcoholic looks like.
Well, even like, this is an interesting conversation, because the word alcoholic as well is also kind of like not being used as much in like medicine. And
that's not great for me.
It's not. But a lot of people still use it. A lot of people, and there's also nothing wrong with it. But a lot of people now are talking about alcohol use disorder. And the reason is because like alcoholic, like you said, has this kind of like one, and don't get me wrong, because for some people the word alcoholic is really empowering and they want to use it, and that is their prerogative, especially if you're in like recovery circles or AA rooms. So this is not me saying like no one should be using that word if that feels like the right fit for you, like absolutely. But it's because it's got this like binary thing of like you're either an alcoholic or you're not, and then you're disregarding all these people in the middle who have got problematic relationships with alcohol. You know, alcohol is causing problems in their life, but because they have always been taught, I don't look like that. And that was a big thing for me. I even like at the beginning, I know a lot of people now that have like done AA, been through the program, swear by the program. At the beginning, I wrote it off because I was like, I'm not an alcoholic and they're going to laugh me out of the room. Whereas like loads of people now, like you might have benefited from it, but we have this one idea of what it looks like. And the other problem is those people did not just wake up one day and they're at that rock bottom. That's a slow, steady decline. So all those people that are in the middle might eventually end up at that rock bottom place, but we're disregarding them. And like the analogy, because I love an analogy I always use, is like if we saw that there was a fire happening over there now, we would go and do something about it. We'd be like, oh shit, there's a fire.
Even if it was little.
Even if it was tiny. We need to do something about that. We wouldn't just let this entire place burn down and then be like, we should really do something about that. And that is what we do with our relationships with alcohol. We wait until we're that bad. Like you always hear, oh, you're not that bad. When I stopped drinking, countless people said, oh, you're not that bad. So I was like, well, do I just wait until I'm that bad? Like, because then when I am that bad, and all those people who are that bad, it's even harder for them to come back. Like one of my big things is like prevention and helping people before it gets to that point. And I think because of this, like we have a lot of terms like alcoholic, addict, and there is also the argument of like people like more human-centered terms of like a person with addiction. But I think it has that like very black and white of like you're either this or you're not. And I think it stops a lot of people in between from questioning their relationship with alcohol. So yeah, that I think is a thing I love talking about it, of this like big grey area. Like a lot of people like to call it grey area drinking, of like it's causing you untold problems in your life, but you don't apparently have a problem.
Yeah. The last thing I want to touch on really quickly before I ask you the final question that we've been asking all our guests is something really important. It was a post that you did that I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
I think all your posts are absolutely brilliant. It's wonderful. But it was about a alcohol brand. And
Yes.
they were doing a skin cancer campaign.
Yes. Oh, God, that's what I remembered. That was a long time ago.
But I thought it was
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. Do you want to, do you want to talk through what the post was about and, you know, why it's important for you?
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot of this, like everyone knows what like greenwashing is or like rainbow washing is. And so this is kind of like in a lot of places, some it's alcohol washing, mental health washing, but you get a lot of alcohol brands that partner with charities that kind of it's to almost like offset the harm that they're causing, because there's a lot of links. Alcohol has ties to 7 different cancers, and then they're partnering with, you know, a skin cancer charity, and it'd be like a cigarette charity partnering with like a lung a cigarette brand partnering with like a lung cancer charity. But you see it all the time with like alcohol brands partnering with like mental health charities, or like there was one who partnered with like a domestic violence charity, and you're like, hang on, but this is alcohol is often a part of the problem in these situations, and they don't ever address that in the campaigns. If they actually address that, it might go somewhere to helping, but they don't. They very much like, it's almost kind of a way to absolve, you know, oh, sorry that our product does this, but we're going to give some like money to charity. Like there's a lot of partnerships with like alcohol and LGBT charities. And actually when you look at like the stats, like LGBTQIA plus people are disproportionately affected by alcohol harm, because a lot of their safe spaces are places where, like, you know, alcohol is rife, and lots of alcohol brands sponsor pride things, but then, you know, pull out when there's a bit of backlash. So it's a very like transactional relationship and not a meaningful one. So yeah, there's the alcohol industry are guilty of doing a lot of funny things, I would say. That so there's a lot of things that don't always make sense.
I find it really interesting that packets of cigarettes, they have, you know, really graphic images plastered all over them, advertising. I don't think you can advertise cigarettes.
No,
can you?
No.
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, you walk on the tube and there's massive billboards for booze still.
Yeah.
And you can still have booze adverts on TV.
Yeah.
Before 9 p.m? Or...
I think so you can hear, but it's changing in different places. Like, and there's all sorts of like rules and regulations around alcohol advertising and around like sports. And there's a whole debate now of like, actually some alcohol brands that weren't allowed to advertise on sports are now using their 0% products to now be able to advertise. So they're actually still getting their like brand in front of people. So there is the argument that, like, you know, promoting a 0% beer but with the brand label is actually still giving the like original one promotion. So it's like a weird, like, cheeky roundabout way. So yeah, there's a lot of like interesting stuff with like advertising as well. There are like some regulations, but I think it is interesting. Like, I think a lot will change, but there's just so much money in it because the government like really don't want to do a lot, because there is the argument that alcohol brings in so much tax that it offsets any kind of like negatives, but it's actually been debunked time and time again that the alcohol actually costs the economy more than it
Having
brings
worked in a hospital, there is absolutely no way that, I'm sorry, the tax, the amount of the amount that I personally have treated people because of alcohol is I just don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, because I think it's the latest stats, but I think it's gone up now. Is like, it was alcohol cost the NHS, I think it's like 3.5 billion. And there was even like around COVID, there were some really funny stories about like people who were like clapping the NHS. One woman like was clapping the NHS, and she was so drunk that she like fell over. So then she like had to use some of the NHS money. Like, we're all really like passionate about our NHS.
Yeah.
There's an easy way that we could save a lot of money for the NHS. And again, that's not to say, you know, prohibition. It's to say like, these are the conversations that we don't have and the things that we don't look at. And outside of healthcare costs, there's like, you know, costs for criminal damage and police having to go out to homes and everything like that. Like, alcohol does cost our economy so much money when you actually really like look into it. It's quite interesting.
There's a scar on my head. You may or may not be able to see it, where that was an alcohol-induced injury that was stitched up by a wonderful NHS doctor about probably 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So before I was a doctor, but yeah. So and yeah, having been a doctor treating people and having been a patient who's utilised NHS resources because of drinking, I think, yeah, the British culture and drinking and the cost on the NHS really, it's not a great mix.
Yes, it is wild.
Yeah. That has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. I'm so excited for people to listen to it. We've been asking every guest this question. Millie, what do you wish every woman knew by the age of 25?
Oh, I wish every woman knew that they don't need alcohol. If you want alcohol, fine. But I think we have this like, oh, I need a drink for this. And like, I need a drink to calm my nerves. Like, I am living proof that you do not need a drink to get through heartbreak, to get through stress, all those other things. And you can be yourself and people will really love you and still think you're fun if you stop drinking.
I have to echo that. I would just leave it on what you've just said.
No,
But I've got to echo what you've just said and say that if there's someone there listening right now who is sober curious, challenge yourself to just one sober night.
Yeah.
Just one sober night, because that was the turning point for me, realising not every social situation needs a drink. And the start of my self-esteem being built on the sober version of myself and not the drunk Faye who often did very bad things. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Me. When I saw you launching this podcast, I was like, I want to be on that. So yeah, this is perfect.
And I was like, I need Millie on the podcast. Fab. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.